Is it time?
It's time. We are.
Are we on?
We are on. We are underway.
Well, welcome everyone. You're here just in time for palette cleaning.
Yay! We all love palette cleaning.
Today, we can make terrible highlight puns. So, any suggestions for what the title might be at the end would be welcome.
I think it ran through my head. We could call this one the Pen 15 Club.
I think there's levels I'm not getting to that. So. Is there a 10-15 club?
No, Pen 15.
Yeah, I know you said pen, but what's pen instead of?
No, pen's not instead of anything.
Pen isn't.
When you write it down, it then spells out something.
Oh,
P-E-N-1-5.
Idiot child. Oh, well, see, now we're going to have to start again. So this is meant to be highbrow art channel stuff.
Alright, I'm just lowering the tone.
This is all the help you can get these days. It's a bit tragic, isn't it? But at least, actually, to my credit, it didn't even occur to me. So, and I love a puzzle, so it means that we haven't all got our minds in the gutter. Right. Well, after that dodgy start, apologies. Yes, highlight puns. I could start, but they're highlighters as well. So lighter also works. Right, I've got reasonably clean palette. I've got all these blues left over from the last painting I did, so I'll keep them there because they might be helpful. And I've got a little 12 by 10, 10 by 12, 10 by 8, 10 by 8 panel. This is a canvas panel this time, so I'm going to have a bit more texture to play with. I'm going to start with probably number 8 brush there. Yeah. I've got all these colours to come in, but I'm going to start tonally. I'm going to start with something. I'm going to start with something slightly bluish.
I might get rid of the thingy camera, the room camera. It's quite glitchy this evening.
Is it?
Yeah.
You could try the other one. Try putting the other, switching it over.
Well, I could do that, couldn't you?
If you right click on it and go to source or something like that, you should be able to switch it over to a different source. So I'm thinking the reflections are going to be quite important here. So I've got this nice kind of zigzag like that. The orange, the yellow one goes across. There's this sort of dark bit up the middle. And there, and then there, and then the oranges are going to go. That goes there, the pink will go up here somewhere. And the green one sort of in there-ish. There's where the front of the bowl is going to be. It's where the back of the bowl is going to be. Don't need to fuss about the bowl too much, but it's a nice bit of shadow. So I'm still going to jut in. Bit of shadow here. There you are. I feel like that's my drawing in. That was quick. So just getting my eye into what's going on. Yeah.
You carry on. Oh,
Okay.
don't mind me.
So before I get too caught up in it, I'm going to be thinking about how to jigsaw these shadows together. There's going to be a shadow there and there. And I'm trusting an awful lot of the sort of the first pass with the drawing as well, but not 100% relying on it. That'll be the bottom of the bowl, so that's going to be the bottom of the highlighter. This is going to move that shadow back up to there, and things moving around, blah blah blah.
Horrible noise, isn't it? Sorry about that.
So I might actually chuck in a few colours ahead of time. Be all okay for the shadow.
Ta-da!
You made it all better.
Yes.
Well done.
Genius.
Okay.
Not quite.
Okay, that's enough dancing around that. I think I found my way in. Does that make any sense to you, Graham?
No, normally these do.
Really?
Yeah,
The
normally
drawing
I
stage.
can, the first few brushstrokes and you go, that's where it's going to be.
It's very clear to me what's going on, but this is the interesting thing, is inside my head there's a load of other stuff.
Actually, hold on. I might have... Yeah, that's one there.
I quite like the idea of at that point when it clicks.
Am I right in thinking that you've created the kind of where the what am I trying to say, the lid of the pen as well, so that you can see where the line's going to be in it or not?
What, this one here?
Yeah.
Or this one? Yeah. Yeah, you can see those little stripes around where they're going to be. So some of the lights are sort of missing. They're just sort of blank gaps at the moment.
It's quite an interesting bowl for them to be sat in as well, isn't it? Because it's, it's slightly too large for them, but...
Yeah, it's not the first choice of the stationery enthusiast, I wouldn't have thought. Right. I'm going to go not too much darker. Probably that blue. I'm going to really pin this down in a few places. that is going to be the edge of that.
But what you'd be pleased with, James, is that what I have done with the new camera is put it in such a position that it's showing off your fancy new light.
That's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to move this shadow down.
Have you done the sort of spiel as to how your light box above the canvas behaves?
I don't think anyone's particularly interested in that, are they?
I found it interesting, but maybe that says more about me than...
Okay, well, it's yeah, if you can see the light up here, this thing, it's high up above the canvas, so it's not causing any reflections, which is a real problem if you're trying to film things. Yeah, something like that. I'm trying to do two things at once here. But the problem is if you put the light high above the subject matter, loads more light gets to the top of the canvas than gets to the bottom. And so when it's being filmed, when it's on the camera, you get this really bright stripe at the top and this really dark bit at the bottom because the camera finds it hard to adjust. But this one throws more light to the bottom of the image than it does to the top because it has a parabolic reflector. I don't know if it's parabolic or... I guess it's, you know, it's part of an ellipse. If you're interested in ellipses, and who isn't, you'll know that one focal point, anything that reflects from one focal point will land at the other focal point. So you can use that to manipulate how the light's reflected. Okay, hopefully that's making a little bit more sense now.
So are you using blue as your starting colour so that that's going to eventually be a little bit more depth?
It's a bit of shade, but there's a reasonable amount of paint going in there. So it's going to mix with what goes on the surface afterwards. It's going to be high enough.
That was going to be a question I was going to ask, actually. So you're on a, am I right, textured board today?
Well, it's a canvas panel, so there's canvas glued to panel.
And how different is it to paint on that than it is to just paint on canvas?
Oh, it's pretty much the same. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just spotting things. I'm looking at that shadow and seeing how it aligns with this reflection. Yeah, it's pretty much the same, except that there isn't a give to the canvas. So on a stretched canvas, when it's a flexible surface, so it gives underneath, which doesn't really make any difference with the way I'm painting on it now. I'm seeing all sorts of things now, gradually moving stuff around. But yeah, it can make a difference with the bigger canvas, but it's more to do with the tooth. The canvas, depending on how much you size it, has a what they call a tooth, which is the rough surface that grips the paint. And I'm going to use a smaller brush just to clear some space away. Yeah, so an interesting effect. Sort of changing the amount of tooth you have on a surface, because it changes everything about the brush strokes, the marks you're making, and also how you pull out visual information, how you apply detail and all that kind of stuff.
Is there a grain to the way that the tooth structure is on the canvas?
Yeah. It's to do with the weave of the canvas itself. So the course of the weave. You can have a coarse weave, but then you can put a lot of primer and gesso, and that fills in the gaps. Mm-hmm. So they used to use canvas and make it completely smooth. The origins of oil painting. They would always work on wooden panels. Stretching a canvas came later. But a wooden panel, like the kind of they would use for an icon or something like that, would be covered in gesso, which is plaster and rabbit glue. Chalk and rabbit glue. It's just that gesso is just Italian for chalk. And so this is going to want to expand. We'll have to be very careful with it. And then you can sand that smooth, and you can get a really nice, almost shiny surface with it. It's what they would use for preparing wooden carvings for gilding, so they could cover it in gold leaf and have the effect of as if it was made out of solid gold. Of course, you can see the texture through it. So,
so is it easier to paint onto a textured surface or onto a smooth surface?
It takes the paint off the brush more effectively.
Okay.
So you can get more layers of paint on in one sitting as well. Yeah, I feel like I'm concentrating and not explaining myself very well. Oh, there you go. Okay, that'll do now. I should probably start putting some colour on. Yeah, I forgot what I was saying. This is going to be a fun little image, this one. The colour's going to be the most fun thing about it. Which is partly why I'm holding back with it.
There's the challenge getting the brightest of the colours on there, is that?
Yeah, well, there's an intensity there, and there's more than one. So, yeah, they're going to have to agree with each other. I'm going to be able to make a brighter green than anything else. So if I can't make the orange and the pink as bright as they appear, but I can with the green, then it's going to look like the green is glowing. And I don't particularly want that. I want them all in balance, so that's going to be a thing to try and figure out on the palette. That's the first thing I'll do. Just finish this tube of mixing white. Get the last out of that. Sometimes I keep the lid in case there's a tube in that particular session that the lid gives up. Right, I'm going to have some of this sort of creamy colour in the background. Let's get quite pale. Put a little bit of this.
It's got a really cool reflection underneath it as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. So that's a background colour. That's something I can make more of, but I can also use it. See if I get my blue colour right. It's going to be a bit of this. A bit of this black. Where the blue gets dark, that's probably about right. So I can take some of that and some of this background colour, mix them together, and it should give me a fairly good version of what's on in the foreground. Yeah. Yeah, pretty good separation. I'm happy to guess with that. I'm not going to be applying this very thick. I'll use a slightly larger brush. This is definitely going to change later on, but it'll do a job in the meantime.
Right, so here's a question for you.
Yep.
I apologise in advance if it's very stupid, but so the pigments in the paint, when you mix them together,
Yep.
are the two different coloured pigments like squashing into one another and becoming a different colour, or are they joining next to each other to become a different colour?
Do you mean like is it like different coloured tennis balls in a bag, or is it like mixing two dyes together?
Yeah.
Right, it's like the tennis balls.
Okay.
Unless it's like the dyes. So you get dye-based pigments, which is still very light, fast, and reliable. They've usually got the name Lake. So if you go in for so I have some Scarlet Lake right there, actually. And the Lake colours are what they would call colours that are dye-based. Very few of them are used anymore because they're generally not as light, fast. But there's a few exceptions. Scarlet Lake being one of them. Pretty good. Good pigment. Yeah, otherwise it's the pigments are ground up, repetitive, sort of chemical, either man-made or dug out of the ground, but still it's the same chemical makeup all the time because that always delivers the same color. So if you dig the same earth out of the ground and it's got the same color, it's got the same color for a reason. Yeah, that doesn't change. So a lot of what they'd call red ochres were really just rust. And it's, oxidized iron is the reason you get a lot of reddish clays and stones around the world. It's usually what's in there. And so, yes, similarly with other colours, So people talk a lot about lapis lazuli. It's got a particular role to play in the history of art, and certainly in the sort of the ideas that different colours represent different things. It sort of took on its own life in the world of art history because of its value, you know. So the way it was used changed the ideas around it. Sorry, what was I guessing about? Yes. So that's a particular chemical composition that happens naturally and forms these this chemical which is found in some rocks in Afghanistan and a few other places, and that's what gives it its color. So when you buy it off the shelf now, you're not buying stuff that's mined in Afghanistan. It's you're buying something that was made in a factory by a chemical process that a German chemist worked out in the mid-19th century. But chemically it's identical. There might be people who are fussy about the sort of texture and that kind of thing, or attach some other significance to it, but usually that's all about Emperor's New Clothes, that sort of thing. So the pigment's the pigment, and it's ground up, and that's why it keeps its colour. If it were a dye, or if it was something that takes on that colour for a while, you can't grind up blueberries and use that as a pigment, because it won't be the same colour in a month, and some pigments aren't going to be the same colour in 10 years. A good many of them, in fact.
But my question for you though is like, so you've got red paint, red pigment in it. You have white paint, white pigment in it.
Yeah.
When you mix them together,
you've got a load of bits of white pigment and a load of bits of red pigment. And
so that's what it is. It's not a...
Generally speaking.
They're not moulding together to create...
No, they're not making a new thing. They are still their own chemicals.
But it's the way that our eyes perceive what's going on.
Yeah, so that thing I did last week with optical mixing, that's happening a lot of the time with colour. There's lots of things that make us see colour. It's kind of fascinating. Iridescence is a good example of what we see colour that isn't there. Blue butterflies aren't blue. There's a structure in their wings that reflects light in such a way that it interferes with itself and produces very short wavelengths, which creates, as blue light is coming off them. But they themselves are not blue in the same way. A pigment is the colour it is because it absorbs all of the other colours. So a blue pigment absorbs all the red and green light, but it reflects the blue light, and that's why we call it blue. White paint reflects all the light evenly. Black paint absorbs all the light evenly. And so, but you can also, when you see colours on some petrol in a puddle, that's because that very, very thin layer is, light is bouncing off. It's going through it, but it's bouncing off the back of that layer and then coming back. Same with a soap bubble. And that's the colour is telling you when the thinness of the layer is the same as the wavelength of that particular colour of light. That's how it happens. In a brief way. There's lots of things going on, which I don't completely understand, and you'd need a scientist to explain it to you. But there's lots of things with interference and refraction and stuff like that. But it's a fascinating thing. But with paint, it's pretty much all just pigment absorbing or reflecting light, and then bouncing it back to the eye in different quantities. And you can think of it like a bunch of coloured tennis balls, but just from very far away.
Mm-hmm.
That said, there are some pigments that interact with the medium differently. I've talked about flake white before. Flake white behaves differently with the oil than titanium white. With titanium white, you very much get the feeling you've got a bunch of lumps of white floating around in this stuff. But flake white, it seems to be more reactive, if you like, to the...
And so then there's particular times that you would choose to use those two different whites
Yeah, partly to do with how it plays out, but it's more to do with how the colour behaves on the surface. Getting it on there is a problem anyone can learn to solve. There we are.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate the answer.
Oh, no, my pleasure. Yeah, I am practicing talking about these things a bit. I'm going to do a little course on colour, and I thought that'd be a fun thing that a lot of people would enjoy. But getting those answers down to a couple of clear, understandable sentences well, it can be tricky.
Well, a lot of times it is the explanation of, tennis balls in a bag. We can visualise that.
Yeah, yeah.
We know exactly what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little go at doing a thing about perceptual colour in a class last week after the live stream, but I felt like I wasn't as clear as I could have been, so I'm going to keep working on that. Because I did a bunch of stripes on the back of I think it's on the back of here. Maybe I'll show it to you at coffee time. A bunch of red and green stripes, and if it's an orangey red and a yellowy green, it will make effectively a yellow colour, which is quite funny, because it's like looking at an illusion. It's it almost makes you want to laugh because your eyes are lying to you, and it feels funny.
So is a lot of painting kind of understanding this sort of way that the mind works and these tricks that it goes through?
Yeah, it's not even necessarily understanding it. It's building up an expectation of what's going to happen when you do particular things, and then using that predictive power to use it when you need it,
It's almost like building up your own knowledge base as to what works, what doesn't, so that you can use it going forward. A lot of it's instinctive.
I mean, if you think of like a sportsman curling a football, or changing the way they hold their bat or something like that to produce a particular effect, they had to think about the physics of it. They'd never get it done. Mm-hmm. It's built up over time through trial and error and practice and repetition, and yeah. Now I'm wondering whether I should use a knife here or whether I can just these day glow colours are going to be really tricky. I think I might be getting a few specialist paint colours out in the meantime. I'm not going to worry too much about edges. I'm just going to he says worrying about edges. I'm telling myself I'm not going to worry about edges, and then exactly what I'm doing. These edges seem so important. Mostly, it's going to be lots of bits of dark and stuff. So I can work in different directions. Hopefully they will turn up as I go along. Maybe I should have more than one brush for this. Go straight to this brighter pink I did underneath. It's nowhere close. I won't be putting too much on there. Now I'm sort of starting to dot around. I'll go down a brush size. I was talking about this green. I'll borrow a bit of this viridian. And so when we get to the shadow colours of some of these, they're actually going to become stronger versions of the actual colour. Yeah, it's going to be there somewhere. Yeah, so very few hints of that very bright green. And when I do put those very bright colours on, they've got to land exactly where they're needed in order to do their job. Yeah. And so I'm figuring a lot of stuff out now so that I can do that when the time comes. That's going to be steeper, and that's going to look about right. Yeah. Can put a bit of this green on now, actually. Just slightly lighter one. It's not going to be yellow enough. It probably will. Very hard to pin this down, but that would be too minty. Yeah, a little bit of extra yellow in there. Don't know how well any of this is going to work. To get the excess and soften that in. It actually gets a bit bluer in places. A little bit there. That's not it. Oh well, if I'm going to hit snags, I may as well hit them now. that needs to get even brighter here. An even more intense colour. Go enough. Very subtle little changes here. Yeah, so I'm going to be restoring some of these edges with the background colour as it goes in. That'll probably do for that. Let's do some dark orange. Still loads of green on that brush. What's on here? Oh yeah. So go back to my red brush. Should be able to get a nice dull browny orange out of that. It's going to be loads redder. Let's see where that's going to go. You're over there somewhere. It's going to be even darker than that, but for the meantime, right, need a darker version of that. Just can go right next to it. Bit of alizarin. Hey, so I've gone a bit quiet now, haven't I? What else? No, there's a bit dark in here. More of that in. But I don't want to smother it too much and destroy the places where the lights can go afterwards. I don't normally clean my brushes this much, but the colours are so distinct that it's going to be necessary. The real change in hue. This one needs to be a bit redder. Yeah, still not bright enough. I'm going to have to go to maximum orange on this one. I do have my little secret weapon of the last of the chrome orange to exist in the universe, so I might make something of that. It's kind of working. Again, I want to not worry about going over these edges because I can always restore them later on with background colour. So while I've got that, no, still too orange. Let's try some pink. I'm going to try this. It's got blue in it. Well, that won't do at all. Okay, let's pop some magenta in there. No. Then got away. Oh, try a little bit of crimson. Where's that crimson next? That rose madder. Oh yeah, here we are. This might do the job. That is suitably violent. Watch that colour turn up. Something about the combinations of these colours as well is going to communicate the sort of the multi-pack of highlighters. We'll take a very short glimpse to look at the stationery shelf, the shop, and recognise that the highlighters, it's just that combination of colours.
Is there a reason why you've left yellow out of the mix of the normal?
No, it's no, just one thing at a time. Well, I wanted this combination up here.
Oh no, I mean in terms of your layout, the scene layout.
Oh right. Oh well, yellow's the only one you use, isn't it?
Yeah, true. Actually,
You know, when you show intent, when you bought your new highlighters, you get the yellow one out. No one starts highlighting things in green or something. It'd be weird. Yeah, that needs to be better aligned. I'll put the darks back in afterwards. That's going to have a highlight on it. Don't need to fuss about this stuff too much. Okay, are those colours starting to emerge? That's the question. I think they are. I'll do these yellows. Oh, you know what I haven't done as well? But I've got stuff on the palette, so that's okay. Yeah, let's do the yellows first. If I get some yellow and some white. That's not going to be the right yellow. It's going to need a tiny bit of green in it.
I like this though because I think it falls outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a comfort zone, or everything's in my comfort zone. It's definitely not that. So
I don't know,
I get what you're saying.
you generally paint in more muted colours.
Yes, yes. So yeah, actually, it's a very, very different job than I normally have to do, which is
Is that a fair way of saying it?
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, well, most things exist in more muted colours. These freakish bright colours like this, and even then, there's only a few bits where they're really bright. Yeah, they really, well, they don't exist in the world. That's why highlighters work. You know, if there was sort of, that's why you don't get a sepia highlighter. You wouldn't.
A beige.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that'd stand out.
It's also the reason why the a similar sort of reason as to why we have to use blue cloths, like disposable cloths, in the kitchen, because you don't find food that is blue.
Yes. Exactly. So if there's a bit of cloth on it, then you would know. Probably the same with those plasters, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you drop it in someone's salad, they're not going to eat it by accident. They'll pick it out instead.
Yeah, exactly. It just means that we'll pick it out easier.
Are those colours doing the job? I think they are quite. Weirdly, after all my fears, the green is probably the least shouty. The pink can turn up a bit.
I was going to say that the green was the one that needed to go up a bit more.
Now, here's what's interesting, is the shadow colours for this one here are going to be the ones that are in the reflection and look yellow. Let's do the same thing with the orange. Yeah, I don't know if there's enough blue to sort of mix on the surface, but hopefully. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, even redder. It's quite fun how these colours change, isn't it? I don't know. Okay, what else? I've got this deep pink colour. So that can go under here. Yeah, that works. This yellow will go back over the top. So the question is, how much brighter am I capable of making it? Some of that green. I'll soften that down slightly. This is going to be very dark. And in there. Yeah, quite fun. It's a good time for a break.
Yeah.
I could do a couple of little things just to keep everyone calm, just in case anyone's shouting at the screen. Am I jumping the gun with that? I probably am a bit. Yeah, that's going to come in a bit more, but I won't do it just yet. That'll happen later on. Yeah. Yeah, I need to take a moment there.
I like it though.
Yeah.
It's a bold statement already, isn't it?
It's a fun thing. Yeah, and I think it'll be quite recognisable. That's what it is. Yeah, a bit more to be done to it, but it's not a bad start. Cool. We put the time lapse on. And,
This back on. There we go. Welcome back.
We're just talking about what we could do in the middle of a live stream just to find out if anyone's actually paying attention. Probably not something that it'd have to be something people would call the police about, wouldn't it? Otherwise it just wouldn't show up. You know, we did something like try and summon a demon or something, people just switch over. It's my own business, you know. Have to be something worth reporting. Which makes it tricky, doesn't it? I've got enough paint on the surface now that I can start sort of tinkering in little bits. One of those tinkerings is going to be...
It's a really fun painting so far.
Yeah. I know I'm having a great time. I'm adjusting to the fact that no one will get Smashy and Nicey references anymore.
Nobody what, sorry?
Smashy and Nicey. It was a Harry Enfield thing.
Was, yeah.
Paul Whitehouse and Harry Enfield. Mike Smash and Dave Nice. Because that's what DJs really sounded like. Especially the sort of leftover ones from the 60s. You know, who went on about how they used to be on a pirate radio station on a boat somewhere. And nobody cared anymore one day. And it was a bit difficult for them. Um, but I don't know where that came from.
There's also the elements of like local radio presenters.
Well, there became this this sort of style that people would just mimic, but they were the old school. So Smashy and Nicey were sort of old school. They'd been around in the heyday, but when they were sort of hip with the kids and never updated. It was just a super little skit.
Brilliant, amazing. Josie's commented, "Hi James and hi Graham. Just popping in. Going to watch these lovely pens later." Good to see you there.
I'm glad you could make it. We were just discussing how to entertain ourselves if it's basically if Josie's not here, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's really well, what happens if the viewer has got something else to do? No,
it's like a comedy sketch in its own right, isn't it?
Yeah. Lumps, don't want lumps.
She's put, haha, sometimes there is a Monday clash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, it's funny how many people find it. I mean, there are people listening to this who are going, haha, they don't know I'm watching. And secret and hidden, and that's how I would be as well. So more power to you. Whatever you do, don't start some kind of pity conversation, because I'm seeing other colours now. Not 100% on this. This yellow pen.
That's okay. It's in my head. You go, oh, I'm seeing other colours now. It's like, oh, the cocaine's kicking in then.
I think you're thinking of LSD. You're a bit of an amateur when it comes to the Class A drugs, aren't you, Graham?
Well, it's never really been my game. So
it's like you haven't even tried. You kids today. Your grandparents would be embarrassed of you. They didn't wander around naked in a field in the 60s, so you lot could all go to bed at 9 and drink herbal tea. They're off their heads. Singing along to Jefferson Starship or whatever it was,
creating things like the Magic Roundabout.
And yeah, and then you come along. It's like you don't appreciate the sacrifice they made for you. You just take it all for granted, don't you? Well, someone's got to.
I am so selfish.
Yeah.
Really ever talk to myself in the mirror.
Have you ever thought about your responsibilities? It's the last time you were at a festival where there was a man on the PA saying, "Don't touch the brown acid, man. It's really bad." Actually, I think I witnessed that changeover at a festival, and it was when they started marketing Red Bull, and it just brought it out. No one knew what it was, and they were giving it away. It's a festival that doesn't happen anymore. It was near Stratford. It's called the Phoenix Festival. I saw Paul Weller there. He was awful. I saw Herbie Hancock there. He was amazing. Anyway, And they were giving these little tins of this stuff, and they were giving it out for free, and no one knew what it was. It was just this sort of soft drink. Tasted a bit odd, but it was, it was free. And all of the chill out tents, which were meant to be for people who'd taken ill-advised quantities of drugs, were just full of people who'd had too much Red Bull, like 6 cans in, going, I don't know what's happening to me. And I remember thinking, like, that's, it's sort of over, that whole 60s thing. It's sort of been normalised now.
Well, so one of the, and I will Google it to check my fact checking of this, but one of the marketing campaigns that Red Bull did was filling up and overflowing bins in London with Red Bull cans.
Ah, that's clever. Right.
So it was seen as a nuisance. People noticed it because the bin was overflowing.
It's quite brilliant.
But then realised that, you thought you should try it because so many other people were.
Unconsciously, yeah. Well, everybody deals with bins, don't they? So
I think it was Red Bull. I am going to fact check because I don't want to be spouting off the wrong information to our 2 viewers.
I could say all sorts of things, couldn't they? You sure it wasn't bombs? That was quite a thing for a while. They never really caught on, though.
It's really amazing, though, isn't it, how a sort of sugary drink company that has caffeine in it is...
And taurine, don't forget the taurine, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah.
I mean, they would advertise that like it was a thing. Oh, it's got taurine in it as well. But nobody knows what it is, but I guess that must be good in some way. No, it isn't. It's actually quite bad.
Yeah, there you go. Red Bull placed empty cans in overflowing bins and around clubs to act as social proof, creating the illusion that everyone else was drinking Red Bull.
See, that is just...
really smart, isn't it?
Devious is what it is. I mean, you can call it smart if you're being generous, but I would call that devious. I'm going to need a brush for darks. I'm going to put a few of these blacks on where they are actually black, just so I've got some contrast. Look in there. Maybe a little bit under there.
That's phenomenal. The advertising budget in 2020 was around 1.6 billion euros.
Yeah, if you're doing that kind of turnover.
That's phenomenal.
I find it slightly worrying, though.
Would you mind pushing the old button on the camera?
I heard it go. Yeah, I can't help thinking that it's a bad sign, isn't it?
How do you mean?
About something. Well, just collectively human beings, where we're putting our resources, where we're motivated to act, turns out to be just the most facile thing. Yeah, I mean, it always used to amuse me when you had like, usually just because they were pretty terrible at it, and it also seemed unnecessary, but when they had like some government advertising board for things like potatoes or milk or whatever. Yeah, it's trying to get people to eat more potatoes.
Public service broadcast, is that the...
Well, no, that was more like warning people, like, remember, do not stick your fingers in electrical sockets. Think once, think twice. Think, untie your children from the railway. I don't know, but all that kind of stuff. So I was far away then. There we go. Get some of these shadows in. That's rather nice. While I'm getting some of these dark colours in. Bit in there. Yeah, my favourite public service announcement when I was a kid was the one that told you if there was a nuclear attack, don't look at the flash, and hide somewhere low down in the house with some water and tinned food. I always used to enjoy when that came on. I think some more of them soon, I think. Sorry, I shouldn't have taken this back into the real world. Hey! It's a weird thing when you see that when you're a kid, and of course all the adults are just adjusted to it, and people have got their head around what they can control and what they can't.
But that was the Cuban Missile Crisis, then kind of pushed that a lot more into people's...
Well, it happened in that way or another several times. That was almost like the prototype, precipitous,
lovely work.
Political, posturing sort of thing. But yeah, it happened again with Reagan and Brezhnev, which was the reason I saw that stuff, and probably others I'm not even completely unaware of. Oh, that's nice. That's my favourite mark so far. That was good. It's going to have a bit as well. I'm going to need some different colour though, and I have got... Oh, I've got a couple. That's an old lemon yellow. I think I've got a tube of... Did I bring it over? Windsor lemon. Where's my Windsor lemon? Cadmium yellow isn't going to do it. It's got to be so sharp. And to find a really sharp yellow that's also quite opaque is tricky.
And what's this called?
This is Windsor lemon.
Windsor lemon.
Windsor. Winsor. Not Windsor as in where the castle is. I presume they were... Windsor and Newton were people who said, hey, we could start a paint company and we could just like buy it off the French and then and then sell it as if we made it. Oh goodness, right. Entertain everyone. I'm going to put this under hot water.
Genuinely love when he just disappears. Big fan of the yellow highlighter. That one just sticks out with me. The pressure as well. As he leaves, entertain everybody whilst I'm gone. The form. No.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Are you done?
Ooh. There we go. I'll put it next to the canopy and hopefully you'll be able to see the colour difference. Oh! Danger, danger, Will Robinson.
So where is the pigment from this from then?
This is, it'll say so, it'll say on the back, PY3, which I think is an aureolin yellow.
PY3.
But it's to do with how they make it. Yeah, I don't think it's like a fancy yellow or anything. Probably not that opaque. But they do something with it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the right balance of fillers or the right kind of fillers or whatever. But it behaves like I remember it behaving. Maybe it's just the sheer quantity of pigment they put in.
A member of the azo family of pigments.
Yes. And so it's quite a cheap one, I think, a cheap pigment, and they use it in a lot of the cheaper paints. But
patented for use in artists' paints in 1909. Oh, you'll like this description. Hansa Yellow Light PY3 is a marginally light fast, semi-transparent, moderately staining, very light valued, intense green-yellow pigment. Somebody got paid by the word, didn't they?
no, actually, you know, if you had to describe the colour, you'd need all of those.
Offered by almost 50 pigment manufacturers worldwide.
Yeah. So, we were having a discussion before. Oh, so I'm so terrible with names. We had a good old chat with the artist who was talking about colours and stuff. The ones who described Michael Harding paints as about the price of a kidney.
Oh, yeah, that was a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I
Lady from America?
Caroline, is it, or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, she was British. I remember people. I remember everything about people.
British, but
she was British, but she was living in, I think it was Arizona. She's an astronomer. Wow. There you are. Well, she obviously left an impression. So that's always nice. But she was saying about this yellow. And the thing is, it turns up in lots of different ways. You can get really bad ones. So because a lot of yellows are imitations of other more expensive pigments, especially cadmium yellow, you can get some of this, you can get some red, and you can call it cadmium yellow hue. It's not going to do the same job. It's not going to be as effective. And also you're sort of cheating yourself out of what it can do as a pigment, as a colour. There you are. Okay, I think we've got a bit of an angle there. Maybe I'll just pop a little bit of that in there. That's too much. A bit in the gap. Something like that. Not sure that's quite it, but there you go.
Right, so this shows my lack of intelligence in the subject matter.
Or just generally, or
well,
just on this subject?
On this subject for now. So there's generally thought to be acceptably light fast.
Yes.
What does light fast mean?
Light fast means it doesn't degrade with heat and light exposure.
Okay.
So you apply energy to something and it affects it. And light is a form of energy. So I've said this before. It's the old blue poster in the travel agent window. Most sort of printing pigments and stuff will degrade very quickly because they're not meant to last. It's not what they're for. Yeah, that is poor light fastness. Light fast means that it won't change color dramatically over time, and it's particularly desirable in artist paints. Okay, I'm going to go all the way to the highlights here. Seems I'm on the yellows and it seems relevant. It doesn't seem to make much difference to anything. It's already so bright. I'll overplay it a little bit. I'm uncomfortable with this. It feels clumsy. I think it's the black stripe. I don't think that helps. I already had a yellow brush. Oh, well, now I've got two. Go back in and do this black stripe again. Maybe keep it a little bit rough, a little bit. A bit broken. There we go. Hooray! Stop fiddling with it. Right. Keep that and move across to the orange. Now, the orange is going to be the... Oh, this is a tricky one. I'm going to go back in with that browny orange. Back in here. I need to find those shapes. I'll do it. Take the excess off the yellow. I'm going to get a bit of that chrome orange out. And this needs to get a little bit lighter. Oh, that's a reflective colour. Right. Let's see what this does here. I mean, quite slow and deliberate about this, but that feels pretty good.
I guess the thing of having 3 pans, although they're the different colours, they are exactly the same shape.
Yes. Hmm. I'll turn up on there a little bit. It's definitely still a murkier orange over here. More intense. And the next thing is getting those bright lights on again. Do it. Might be it. And I come down to there as well. Yeah. Okay, so we get this pink turned up as well. Now I've got a bit of magenta out here as well. What happened? Oh, That's super intense, but it needs to be redder. Somewhere around here is the right amount of pinkness. It's still like a shadow colour. And in here, it's still getting more intense, which is good. We need that. Actually, that's probably okay. Yeah. What a joyful colour, isn't it? Yeah, definitely got a bit of that day glow quality to it. Let's put a bit more of this into the shadow, shall we? See if it does a job. Look at that. Okay, again, back to those bright highlights. You've got a bit of white down there. Just on that edge. Look a bit here, that's too much.
So there's obviously the lip of the glass there, but and is that a conscious choice to put it in right at the end?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I could put a bit around the back, but most of the glass is invisible in the sense that it's really just a mixture of these other colours. So, I don't know if that's a background colour there. I think it is, something close to it. I'll get some of this and put it in here. It also goes into here. And so where the edge of that vase is it's not altogether decided, is it? A bit of that in there, that's nice. This angle gets to change, so there's an edge of the jar around there somewhere, but I can change that angle going in. And this is all the same colour as goes in the background over here. There's just slight variations to it. So yeah, it definitely travels across to here. Across here, it's a sort of a cloudy light. The it really sort of goes over the top of that. I've got this little flash of light that sits on it, which also relates to this. A bit more of that in there, a bit more on that edge. Bit of that dark edge back in just where it's needed. There we are. Bit more of that light off the top, just sharpen off that edge there. Something a bit like that. That works. And so these lights are also going to be the colours that come in here, so I'm not changing anything off the brush. Similarly there. There's going to be bits of light that come across now. Here. Like that. And then bits of it are going to pick up other lights of other colours. So Now I've got that orange. Might make a slightly lighter version of that. Maybe go back to this. Yeah. And some of that orange is going to creep out and also parge across. Some of it's going to turn into a little highlight flash there. Yeah, it's quite fun to sort of try and pin these down. Also these browns here, so
it's like drawing the lip of the glass without drawing the lip of the glass, isn't it?
yeah.
In a weird.
Where else are these colours getting to? That's the question for me. Oh, you know what? That bright orange goes across even further. It also goes across here. Nothing at the back. I think, am I done with the orange? Yeah, probably. So I can go back into these greys now. Somewhere in these sort of grey shades, there's a bit here. It turns out it's browner than that. I'll borrow some brown, put that on it. That's not so sure what it's doing. It's got like a dark edge on there. You're hungry? Yeah, that's all off. So let's get rid of that. Actually, that's quite nice with the shadow over here as well. We'll keep that going. Nice subtle shadow, soft edges. Nothing too distracting to the eye. Ooh. So yeah, the highlights will do a job here. They're not super bright. They are a bit grayer though. So I'll have some of those. I'll pop a few of those. I'm going to have a bit there. Nice little fluid mark here. There's a lump. Did not ask for a lump. Okay. Interesting. Extra light in there. Yes, it's little touches now. They're going to make this make sense. That's going to be a highlight. That is that. Oh. I've got to stop and sit back a second, make sure this makes sense. I've got some purpley bluey shadows to put in a few places as well. There'll be a bit in there. There'll be a bit in there. Get some of those darks in. Where else? No, I have an edge. I don't need to think about that too much. That works. This needs to come out a little bit. And that'll do for that. This is quite subtle. This is this. There we go. That's an important little shape of light that goes around this here. You can go even lighter, I think, in places. I'm going to borrow a little bit of that pink as well here. Start putting it in here, make it a bit more lilac. Because I feel like it's in there. There we are. Ah, it's turning up, isn't it?
I really like this one.
It's been a bit of fun. There's a few little bits and pieces. Right, so where was I? Oh yeah, that dark around this edge here. I went way too... It's higher up than that. Doesn't really know where it is. I'll keep that suitably vague. I'll move that orange up a bit. That was probably better before, wasn't it? It's got to agree with the ellipse, or it's going to be distracting. There, that'll define it better than anything else. Fiddle, fiddle, fiddle. Lots of little excuses to fiddle. To try and resist a lot of them. No, I'm just, yeah. I'm getting to the threshold, the fiddling threshold now. The last thing to do is to get some of these highlights on.
And Steve Henderson's just come online.
Oh,
hi guys, hope you've been enjoying the sunshine. Painting looks great.
This is the nicest things. Steve is a good friend and say that online. But if I chat to him on the phone later, he'll tell me what was wrong with it. I thought it was great, but I couldn't help thinking, are you sure this is be really diplomatic about it? But he spots it every time. He's always sort of right, and at the same time, it's probably something I've gone, oh, I can just let that go, and then it kind of gets in my head again. It's good fun because, you know, I tell you, it's so important to have someone else with the eye to bounce ideas off. Just that honest reaction where you're not thinking about anything else going on in their head. You know they're looking at it in the same way, but just from a different place. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to finding out what's actually wrong with it.
Is Steve a painter himself?
He is. He's a very good artist. He doesn't think of himself as a painter, but he can paint, whatever he says. But he is a fellow visual communicator. He's got the eye. He knows how it works. And so there is it's hard to put it into words, really. There's, you could say there's people that do the thing, and those people could be, one person could be a sculptor, another person could be a welder, another person could dress shop windows. It's that thing of whether you're in that visual world of those, making those sorts of choices and communicating in that way, which is all a bit vague and nondescript.
Yeah, but you're right though. It's a communicating visually. So yeah, visual communicator, fellow visual communicator.
It's interesting though. You say like the idea of visual communications people and go, oh yeah, great, but a lot of the time they don't really. I wonder if many people really understand that there is this sort of, because they can't pin it down. People will go, yeah, but they always communicate using the same things for very good reasons. You don't. If someone says this is a great cake, can I have the recipe? You go, yeah, I will. I'll choreograph some modern dance for you that explains how to. That's not how we communicate that sort of useful information. But the point is, what we often forget is that there's all sorts of things missing from our conventional communication, effective and useful as it is. It can quickly become soulless. So, which is the good thing about it. It can be, what would you call it? Dispassionate, practical. No one ever sort of demands that a mathematical proof includes how the mathematician felt about it. Yeah, but how does it feel to solve it? It's just like, no, you put that there and put that there, and this is how it works. But so much more to life than that. So I think a lot of the time people think of visual communication, but actually they're still communicating in the old way, except now they're standing in front of someone's picture while they do it. And they don't really see the difference.
It's just come back and said, thanks for the compliment. I agree, valued criticism is useful.
It is. So I suppose the point I was making is you can tell me what's wrong with it now. Dawn often watches this and she'll always tell me what she thinks is wrong with it. And it's always interesting. And I've usually got a reason, or I use, make the excuse that it's the camera, which it usually is. It's not my fault. All right, there you go. There's your 2 hours. I could keep fiddling with this, but I'm quite happy with that. I know I can go further with the green. It's not green enough. How far can I take this green? So this is the only time you'd ever be looking at viridian and cadmium yellow and wanting to turn it up to the maximum. You know what? I'm going to take some of this lemon yellow, some of this viridian, see just how green we can make this. That is disgusting. Look at it. That is intense. I think a lot of it's about the green that's around it. I'll put a dash of that on there. Put a bit of white in it. See what that does. There we go, sort of hitting the limit there. Ah, changing my angle. Ooh. Stop fiddling with it now. That's definitely, I think I've taken it as far as I can. There's still things I'm not quite happy about. I really want a crisper line around there. I feel like it deserves it. That's better, isn't it? An extra bit of light just in there. Smooth it off a bit. Pick it up here, same thing. And these little swoops around. That'll do it. Miss anything else? Don't think so. Ah. Right. I'm screaming stop at myself while I'm still doing it. Thank goodness, yeah. No one else is invested in the whole thing. Just have a tiny little brush somewhere. There's one. Oh, now pick a colour. Shall we do the very bright pale blue that isn't there?
Yeah, it's the nods to the one that isn't there.
The absent
To
blue,
absent friends.
blue highlighter.
But it's kind of fitting as well because you did start with blue, didn't you?
Yeah. That way it doesn't show favoritism. Hey. Right. Shall we have a little look? So that's what I'm seeing there. It's going to change. Parallax will change as I'm getting closer, but where's my painting?
I absolutely love the yellow pen.
You know what?
It turned out really well.
It seems like it can't handle the amount of colour. Like the camera's just losing its mind. So yeah, I've gone to the maximum with all of the colours. Apart from the reflections, it's a duller version. Have I got a... Oh yeah. I wonder if turning that away makes a difference. No, not really. Yeah. So I hope that's been entertaining.
I think it's cool because the colour scheme throughout it is like pushing your boundaries because you like we discussed earlier, you're a little bit more muted in the normal stuff that you do.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'm not doing anything different with colour. It's just that subject matter means that there's usually very few bits that you're pushing to the maximum. You know, there's very few bits of an image that you can really go all the way to the thing you took out the tube. But here it happened with all of them. In fact, I even had to get some different tubes open in order to. But those, you know, day glow colours are unnatural. You know, there's an extra reflectivity to them that you don't get. So other things that are very difficult to paint: high-vis jackets and buoys at sea, because they make them these sort of extra reflective stuff. So you're not just getting the colour, you're also getting a certain amount of sort of UV reflectivity.
There's the same reason it's difficult to take a photograph of them, I guess.
Yeah. As well. But at least you've got all these blues and greys in the background to give you contrast. The high-vis jacket, trickier. High-vis jacket on a bright day, it's still got this extra brightness from everything else around it. So to paint that, you'd have to dull everything down ever so slightly around it. So you'd have this one bit where you'd get the brightest yellow out, and that'd be it for the whole painting. If you put it anywhere else, it'd ruin it. But this, you can kind of, get more. Yeah, it was good fun.
Amazing.
Oh, well, thanks for coming along and joining in.
And as always, we'll be in the shop from tomorrow afternoonish.
Yeah, depends. But I shall pop this in a little frame. Oh,
I do have one handy.
Oh, me knees. I do have one handy. So there are bigger frames to go around these as well, but first things first. Let's check it fits.
Oh.
There we go. Let's put something down. Yeah. In there. A little frame. Makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, big fan of that one.
Ah, thanks very much. Thanks for your assistance.
And we shall see everybody again next week.
Yeah. Oh, there they are.
Yeah. Next one, other one.
Huh?
We've got a great shot on the backside.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, is that one?
Yeah. Well, I'll explain that mistake. Have them look at each other.
Yeah. Endless continuum.
Still got the lights on.
Brilliant.